Dear workplace therapist, how do I handle constant harassment from a coworker? I've reported it to all upper management and beyond. Now I just look like a crazy person. Help. Signed, all I want for Christmas is some peace.
The Workplace Therapist Show is sponsored by the Leadership Foundry. Bringing a cutting-edge, real-world approach to leadership development, the Leadership Foundry partners with each client organization to create a custom-tailored experience, virtual or in person, that combines innovative leadership content, world-class facilitators, and one-on-one coaching to ensure your leaders have everything they need to grow and thrive. To find out more and to design your one-of-a-kind program, visit myleadershipfoundry.com.
Okay, folks, today is one of our special shows. This is one of our leadership therapy shows. And if the leadership therapy show is new to you, this is one of the shows where we field your questions. You've written in, you've submitted questions, you've submitted ideas, things you want us to take on, challenges you've got in the workplace, maybe even things that you really don't want to know who wrote it. And so we always take these anonymously. And so to take on our questions today, I never do these by myself. I've got my team with me today. I've got Whitney Mendoza, our show correspondent today. Whitney, good to have you here today.
Thank you, Brandon.
And I've got Emily Smith, my creative director, and my wonderful wife. She's joining us today. Emily, how are you today?
Always glad to be here. Thank you.
So, all right. So I think we got our team. And now it's time for our first question. So, Whitney, I'm going to turn to you. What you got for us?
All right. So, Brandon, you did things a little bit differently for this show. So on social media, especially this one did really well on your LinkedIn, as I can see all these people coming in and voting. You put out a poll that asked, what does your boss really want for Christmas? And I love these answers that you offered, because who does not want this? Okay. An 8 a.m. meeting on Monday, 22 people voted for that, 22% of the votes. A Zoom call on Friday at 5. Who doesn't love that? 17% of people said yes, that's what their boss wants. A motivational poster. I mean, we all love some motivation in the office. We got 11%. However, the clear winner, I'm really surprised that this beat out the 8 a.m. Monday meeting and the Zoom call at Friday at 5. But World's Best Boss mug was the winner there.
Everyone wants a Michael Scott from The Office, World's Best Boss mug.
Who doesn't want that?
So let me share with you what I think everyone's boss really wants. So I do think there are some things you can, as you're thinking about 2022, 2021 and 2022, what you can be doing for your boss. There are a few things I think that really will scratch the itch. So fundamentally, first, your boss wants to feel like they trust you 100% to deal with all the fires and issues that might come up. So I know that's easier said than done. I mean, that's obvious, I suppose, but that's really what what your boss wants. They want to feel like they can let go of the steering wheel and you've got it. So one of the easiest ways to show your boss that you can do that, provide them proactive updates every week on the things you're working on. Because remember, in absence of communication, people assume the worst. If your boss isn't hearing from you, they're going to worry like, oh my gosh, does she have this? Is he thinking about this? Because remember, we live in a world where time's our most precious resource, not money, it's time, and everything is urgent all the time. So your boss is in their head most of the time, wondering and worrying, do you have this? So the more proactive you can be to show them that you got it, that's going to build trust. And that's one of the things they want for this holiday season, trust. Second, the next thing that they'd want, they want no fires. So if you want to ruin your boss's day, present them a lot of fires and say, hey, here's a fire. What do you want me to do about it? That's not what they want, because now they are being drawn into the fire. And you've probably heard me talk more about the author-editor idea. By the way, this is a plug. My book, Author versus Editor, is going to be coming out in the spring, so stay tuned. But they don't want to be brought in to fix a fire. They want you to have that fire already solved. They want you to come instead and say, hey, there was a fire. We've got it largely under control. Just wanted to give you an update, which also ties into trust. The more often you do that, the more they can say, oh, this is kind of nice. I don't have to focus on that stuff. I can focus on other stuff. And that's the third and most important thing your boss wants for Christmas and the holidays and going into 2022. They want time. Primarily, they want time to focus more on the things that only they can do. Or the way I always put it, they want more time to focus on the business rather than in the business. So the more they can trust you, the more they're confident in your ability to put out fires, and the more you can free them up time that they can focus more on the business, you are going to have a really, really happy boss who is thrilled with all the gifts that you gave her or him for the holidays. So if you were really looking for the real list, that's it. And I think for those of you that are managers and leaders on this call, I think you would agree with my list. You'd say, actually, that's exactly what I want my direct reports to give me this year for the holidays. They gave me those things, and I'm going to be really, really happy in 2022. So that's my little riff on that question, Whitney. I think that's the real answer of what our boss really wants.
Love it.
If someone could send a calendar invite for Monday at 8 a.m. and just put the little gift emoji in the subject line. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we polled that. I think that's a great way to kind of kick off our conversation here today. Now, I think we've gotten a few questions too that came in, just challenges people are dealing with. I'd be curious, Whitney, Emily, either one of you want to start?
We each have one. Who wants to go first?
Go, Emily, go.
You want me to go? All right. Here we go. Dear workplace therapist, without naming names, my company is in flux. And who isn't these days, right? Mm-hmm. We are in the midst of a huge transition, embracing the virtual world, new technologies, and the ever-changing workforce. We are a staffing recruiting organization. So, of course, those people are super busy right now. As a part of this change to be more efficient, we have restructured the organization to industry vertical specialization and virtual digital service platform. As a result, we are in our busy peak season, but because the change management is not seamless, we are less efficient. We have seen an increase in internal attrition and a moratorium on hiring and backfilling internal talent. The result is a remaining workforce that is stressed, overworked, operating in a state of confusion due to the many process and department function changes, and the morale and drive is suffering. Instead of finding success through the new platform, we are still, quote unquote, trying to work out the bugs, and the frustration is high. How do we increase employee engagement, elevate morale, make the team feel valued for their time and effort, and provide them with a sense of security? Signed, morale booster needed.
Yeah, this is a really interesting challenge. How ironic, right? They're in the staffing business.
Right.
And there's they're going gangbusters, and then there's a moratorium on their own staffing. So they're ending up in this situation, which I'm hearing regularly from all the clients I'm working with. We'll say, hey, Brandon, I love this author editor idea. It's great to sit in the editor seat, but I got holes on my team and I've got to jump in and do that job too. Right. So it's this whole player coach thing. Like I got to sometimes be the player on the field, sometimes the coach on the sidelines.
Right.
And it's just not, that's not working. So I've actually spent a lot of time talking to a lot of leaders around this. And the constant piece of feedback that I get around this same issue is this: you need to focus on the thing that really matters the most, those one or two or three things that matter the most. So make sure you're really prioritize. What are those things that matter the most? I might even suggest, I know this is completely ludicrous and maybe sacrilegious here, but if that system that you're using, that new technology platform, has got so many bugs that's inefficient, for the meantime, while you're understaffed, throw it away.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. Go back to the old way you were doing things. Because you're already understaffed. You can't control that. What you can control is, hey, I know how to do this without that technology platform. So go back to the things that you know, that work, rely on those things. So put the technology platform aside, say, we'll deal with that when we get enough people and the demand goes down. Right now, let's just do it the way we know how to do it best, even if it's not the most technologically savvy, but if it's going to get us to where we need to go without unanticipated fires. Because what I'm also hearing in this is we're burning the candle at both ends. We are pulled to our limits. We don't have any capacity for any additional fires.
Right.
Okay, well, let's prevent some.
Mm-hmm.
So eliminate all the things that are unnecessary that might produce fires, and just focus on the core things that need to get done and do it in the way that you know how to do it best. I think those two things are key because that's going to really help with morale and because you're providing focus. And then, of course, all the good stuff is give folks lots of appreciation and recognition when they're doing it. Don't forget to do that. Both recognize individually, but also celebrate as a team. So I would double down on the recognition efforts. I would both focus individually, but also make sure that you're celebrating at least, either end of every week or end of the month, whatever your cycle looks like. And you're saying, hey, look, we did all this month. This is fantastic. Let's go celebrate and remind everybody that their hard work has been not done in vain. And then the last thing I would say is go ahead and start making your subtle pushes now to release that moratorium on hiring because and make the case, say, look, we can't do the technology platform that you want until all the seats are filled on the bus. So if you want the technology platform, let's fill the seats. If you don't want to fill the seats, totally fine. No technology platform for you. You can't have both. If you want both, that's fine. We're all going to quit. And so then you're going to be stuck that way. So don't be afraid to set those healthy boundaries and force trade-offs because it's not uncommon that leaders say, I want all of it now. But the reality is that's not realistic. And so you've got to make sure you're forcing those priorities and trade-offs. So those are the initial things that kind of come to mind for me. Yeah.
It reminds me of that conversation you had with Rusty Chadwick a few weeks ago, where he said, what must we do? And kind of focus on that, take an inventory and an audit. So I loved that idea. And that's kind of what you're saying here too. Same thing.
Exactly. Completely. Exactly right out of Rusty's mouth. You're exactly right.
Yeah, that was good.
It reminded me of this really great book I read called The Hot Sauce Principle.
Oh,
really?
Wow.
Which you should also add to the list of what your boss really wants for Christmas. But it's like, there it is. Wow, you've read it too?
Oh, look at that. I just happen to be holding a copy in my hands, Whitney. And
Brandon Smith, the author, right here.
And
but
I'm
it's
the
like,
author.
Here's your 3 bottles of hot sauce. You only get 3, and that's all I'm focusing on. Right? Yeah. You can't give me 10 bottles of hot sauce. I don't want hot sauce on my brownie. We've got these 3 things that we need to focus on, and everything else is just going to have to wait.
Yeah, that's right. Good. That's right. Because the concept's really simple. It's just, what are we putting the hot sauce on? You can only put it on so many things. You can't put it on everything. Right. And so, again, forcing your boss, your leader to say, look, I totally get it. We need hot sauce, but it can't be on everything. So Miss Leader, Mr. Leader, what are the 3 things that you really want it on most? So, yeah, but I think the real thing that I'd go back to in my conversation, comment here is it's okay to not add on another change initiative when you're understaffed like that. Go back to the way things were and you know how to do it until you get fully staffed. You need to be fully staffed to be able to handle the disruption that change causes. It's really hard to be half staffed and say, all right, now let's go change some stuff, everybody. You're already understaffed. So I think that's the thing that is most challenging for most organizations today is they're trying to drive change, but they're not willing to fully staff up to do it and do it the right way. Yeah.
Yep. That's fair.
Okay. Well, I think do we have time for one more question?
We do. We've got one more for you, Brandon.
All right, Whitney.
All right, here we go. Dear workplace therapist, how do I handle constant harassment from a coworker? I've reported it to all upper management and beyond. Now I just look like a crazy person. Help. Signed, all I want for Christmas is some peace.
Wow.
So it's interesting when Whitney and I were batting it back and forth because the harassment, like quote unquote harassment, we're unclear as to what kind.
Yes.
So we thought you probably have some ideas if there are different kinds of harassment.
I have got more questions than answers on this one.
Right. So walk us through what are the things that should be taken into consideration, I guess.
So we have to listen, everybody. I want to be real intentional about this. And I'm going to be very direct and blunt. Be really careful when you use things like harassment, bullying, microaggression, discrimination. Those are nuclear bombs. You better have enough data and evidence before you press that button because those are career damaging bombs. So people throw those out all the time like, oh, I think this person is annoying me. And they just drop a bomb right there and then create a nuclear war. Be real careful. So let's talk a little bit about harassment. So harassment can take lots of forms. So harassment might just be that this person comes over and greets you every day. I remember, Emily knows the story. When I was earlier in my career and my hair was not quite as white as it is today, a little more darker brown with some gray in it. Every day I'd walk into the office. This was when I worked in an office. And the woman who would sit there in the receptionist desk in a very high pitched voice would say, "There's Mr. Brandon, looking more and more mature every day." And I did not like that. But every day she said that. Okay. Now, would you call that harassment? I wouldn't necessarily call it harassment. I would call it annoying, but I wouldn't necessarily call it harassment. So one category of harassment might just be annoying. This person doesn't have ill intentions. And that's the key here. Intentions is key. They didn't have ill intentions, but they're doing this kind of annoying thing and it's repetitive. Okay. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, then you just need to suck it up and have the conversation and say, "Hey, look, I know you're not trying to have any negative intentions around this, but maybe it's just the mood I'm in on the days I come into work, or maybe I'm just trying to be really focused. But for whatever reason, the way you're approaching me is just making it hard for me to concentrate. Could we make any changes to that? It would mean a lot to me." So just call it out and have that conversation. Okay. So that's one. Now we get into harassment, into more of the real definition of the word. So are they harassing you from a work perspective, or are they now into discrimination categories, whether it's racism, sexism, ageism? Those are all protected classes too. So you need to be able to clearly differentiate. So harassment might just be that they are constantly asking you for help with work. Like, "Hey, can you help me with this, Whitney? Hey, Whitney, I know you're really busy, but I could really use your help on this." Or, "Hey, Whitney, this isn't right. Why'd you send over this report to my department? We like this better." So maybe it's work-related harassment. Okay. So, and whereas they're either asking you for help that's not your job, or they're critiquing your job performance in a way that is unprofessional. Okay. So this falls in kind of the professional harassment category. In which case, that needs to be a conversation you have with them, but definitely whoever their manager is. Okay. You need to tell their manager and say, the way they're approaching me, and be able to spell it out, is preventing me from doing my best work here. It's impacting my work performance in a negative way. I need to make you aware of it. Okay. And then you also need to tell HR. Okay. So there's that kind of harassment. And then we get into the other categories where it could be ageism, sexism, racism, any of those kinds of categories of harassment. If you're feeling like that is crossing the line, have the conversation with HR and help them kind of discern with you, have they crossed the line? At what point of this is something that they're doing intentionally or unintentionally, and then navigate with HR on how this needs to be addressed. But have HR help you with that, because it's really important that you do report that if you're feeling uncomfortable in it from a protected class standpoint. So I do think that is something that I would want to partner with HR and make them aware of, because remember, HR's job is, yes, to protect employees, but remember their number one job is to protect the company, protect the employer. So you need to let them know early if this person is walking down a path that could result in a lawsuit. Because that's HR's job is to prevent those. So a lot more questions I'd have around what the word harassment means. So those are some of my initial thoughts. I'd be curious, Emily, Whitney, when you all talked about this term harassment, and this example, what were things that came to mind for you?
Well, I think similarly, we were wondering, what does that mean? Because I think, as you're pointing out, it means different things to different people. And as you also pointed out, it's a big word, not to be thrown around lightly. And so you want to sort of look, what are the behaviors behind that?
Yeah. So can you reread the scenario one more time?
How do I handle constant harassment from a coworker? I've reported it to all upper management and beyond. Now I just look like a crazy person. So that was the other kind of flip side of the coin that Emily and I discussed was, if you assume that it's true harassment in that word, that we just discussed and kind of gave some examples of, this person sounds unheard. They've felt like they've taken it to upper management and gone through proper courses, but nothing's been done.
So based on what we have here, I can make a couple assumptions. First one assumption is the person that they're being harassed by is not their boss, because it's a coworker. We can also make the assumption based on what they said there, that they have not directly approached the person. They said I reported to all upper management, whatever that means. But doesn't say like I had the conversation with the person, they won't stop. They didn't say that to us. So I would say there's room for a conversation there. I would also say, you know, it doesn't sound like they've talked necessarily to HR. So that would be a potential path to go down. If they wanted to go back to the manager path, if they feel really comfortable and feel like that this really is harassment and they feel like they feel grounded in their experience of this and that other people would have a similar experience, then I would go back to the manager and say, you know, hey, we've talked about this before. I've shared this with you. I'm curious. Nothing's really happened since I shared it with you. Is there something I could do differently or say differently to help stimulate action? Because you need to understand this is unsustainable and untenable for me. So if this continues, I'm likely going to need to leave and find another place that's a little bit healthier environment. This is a time and place where you can play that card and you're likely to get heard because no employer right now wants to see people leave. Everyone's understaffed and having a hard time filling those seats. And frankly, if they do fill those seats, they're going to have to pay a 20% premium. Yeah. So they would rather you stay. So you just might need to create a little bit of hot sauce on your own. Put a little urgency and just put a little hot sauce and say, you know, remember there's two kinds of urgency in the world: opportunity scenario and the worst case scenario. In this case, we're using worst case scenario hot sauce. If you don't do this, Miss Manager or Mr. Manager, that's fine. I'm going to leave in about 30 days. And then you'll have that role open that you'll have to fill or do yourself. So don't be afraid to put a little hot sauce on their tongue yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, that made you even think of, you know, correct me if this is wrong, Brandon, but it seems typically if one person's being harassed, perhaps there are others on the team that are being harassed. And so if the situation isn't dealt with, you could be possibly dealing with 2 or 3 people who leave instead of one. Well,
Whitney, you make a really good point. If you really want to see movement and change happen. So when I've seen someone go to a manager and complain about somebody else, they typically tend to take the side of the other person. If I see a team go to a manager and complain about somebody else, they always take the side of the team. And I've seen extreme cases where someone goes to HR, complains about their manager. They're never going to be the HR will never take your side. They're always going to take the side of the manager. But if the whole team goes to HR and complains about a manager, I've seen that manager removed within a week. So wow. if you think that other people are experiencing the same thing, get yourself a little group together, share experiences, and go together as a group to the manager or to HR, and you will see movement happen very quickly. So that is another option at your disposal if you don't think you're alone. Wow. Well, great. Okay. Well, any other questions for us today? I think we've done good work for this month.
That's it.
Okay. Well, hey, folks. So hopefully you found our conversation today really, really helpful for you. Write in with your questions. We would love to hear them. We may not always have the perfect answers, but just to be able to riff a little bit and hear some of the challenges that you're facing and offer some things that we've learned from our clients, our guests, folks that we've gotten to know in the world is a great way for us to all learn together. And until we hear from you, here's to not only a really, really healthy month, but a healthy new year coming up. I hope you and yours are having both a great holiday season and are really excited for the new year.